Hi everybody. I've got a problem up at my spring, and so I'm going to take you up there and show you what I'm doing to try to fix it. The problem is that it's leaking underneath the concrete where I poured a Springbox around the artesian spring, and the water level is leaking out so bad that it's getting close to being below my pipe that takes water out. And so my plan is to dump some bentonite into the Springbox, hoping that that'll go down into the rocks and plug up the leakage. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to have to enlarge the Springbox by pouring more concrete and enclosing the area where the leakage occurs. But that'll make more sense when we get up there, and I'll show you what I'm up against. I've already done quite a bit of work up there this morning. I've taken the lid off the Springbox and disconnected the pipes and cleaned it out somewhat. So let's head up there. I'll describe some of the things on the way, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Now the plumbing in the Springbox is pretty simple. There are 3 pipes coming out the bottom, and they are in the same pattern as these 3 holes in the lid. I made those 3 holes in the lid just so that when you take the lid off, you know which way it goes back on, with this facet lining up with those pipes. But the 3 pipes on the top, there's the overflow pipe where water discharges, and I have a problem now because there's no water coming out of it. I have a leak underneath in amongst those pipes that I'm going to have to fix. The next pipe comes out. Fortunately, it's below the water line at the moment, barely. That's the one that feeds my water system. So my plumbing is supplied by that copper pipe that comes out of there and runs us down in the creek, stays in the creek for a long ways. Here you can see the yellow handle is simply a shut-off valve, and the next valve is an air bleeder valve, so if you open that, it allows air into the pipe so that I can drain it if I need to solder on it down below. That's all there is to the plumbing up here. On the way, I'll describe some of the problems I had. Taking the lid off the Springbox. Actually, I didn't have many problems, but I have some concerns. I made a bipod out of 2x4s that I used to hold up the come-along tackle that I used to lift the lid. The lid weighs 580 pounds, just so that nobody can take it off and do mischief. And I hooked that rigging to a tree that used to be big and solid, but now it's still big, but it's not too solid. It's dead, and I'm a little concerned that it's going to fall over someday. And I hope I don't pull it over when I lift up the lid. But I have lifted the lid up this morning, and it's hanging there in space right now. We're getting close to the spring now. You can hear the creek running under there. My plumbing goes down in that creek. And the spring is just behind this big erratic boulder. There's my gear. The Trapper Nelson backpack I used to haul up 50 pounds of bentonite, and I used it to haul up my rigging, my come-alongs, my tools. So here's my spring, all torn apart. This is my copper supply pipe. It's now hanging in midair. I disconnected that so that I wouldn't get any debris in it. Down here you can see the drainage channel in the shape of a 90-degree sweep that's poured in the concrete, and that's intended for clean out, and that's what we're going to do right now. You can see the 3 pipes at the bottom of my Springbox. The bottom one is the clean out drain. That's where the water is coming out right now. The water's so clear you can't see it, but it's 3 inches deep. It's right up to the top of that bottom nipple. And the second nipple is my supply. I've got my pipe unhooked from that. And the third one, the top one, is supposed to be the overflow. So when the Springbox isn't leaking, water's supposed to be coming out the overflow pipe and running down here. And then the secondary channel is for surface water that is routed around the Springbox, and I'm surprised I've got that much flow coming out right here, right out of the ground above my spring. It used to be I'd only get flow there during the winter, or during the spring snow melt, and then it would dry up by this time in the summertime. Now here's the Springbox that I poured, and the lid is hanging in midair, suspended by this come-along, hanging from this 2x4 bipod that I made this morning. And the bipod is held up by the come-along that goes to the base of that tree. And that tree is now a snag. It's dead, and I'm really worried that that thing might break and come apart on me. So that's where I'm at now, and I'll now begin to clean out the spring. I'm going to start out by reaching in the Springbox and pulling out whatever debris I can, see what's in there. And what's in there is just roots that have grown for the last 20 years. I don't know where the plants are that own those roots, but I'll pull them out anyway. Oh, and one of the things, this is my strainer, but that's supposed to cover the nipple of the pipe that I take the water from. That's supposed to be hooked onto a brass sleeve that's inside that brass nipple. And I'm going to reach down in there and get that sleeve. It's inside of this nipple right here. But before I do, I'm going to lower this lid because I don't want it swinging over, if something happens, swinging over and trapping me inside. So I'm going to lower it a few notches. Yeah, quicker way. Can't really count notches that way. Doesn't matter. As I said, this thing weighs 580 pounds, so I don't want it crashing on me. Now I'm just going to rest it on the Springbox now. But quite a bit of the weight's still being held by the come-along. And look in there with a light and see. Well, I'm a little baffled. You can't see that sleeve. That is truly baffling. Well, to figure that out, I'm going to take this bell off and look in from this side, if I can get a grip on it and turn it. I'm going to bring a hammer with me. I don't know if this is a good idea. It's been a long time since that guy's been off. Yeah, I'm just baffled about what happened to that brass sleeve. The only thing I can think of is that it might have dissolved and disappeared, because it was inside the nipple. There's a 3-inch nipple in there, and it was right inside here. Maybe it's still in there. Maybe that's the brass sleeve. Looks to me like that thing just dissolved, disappeared. It was a tight fit inside that nipple, and this stainless steel strainer was crimped around that brass. Here we have the stainless steel strainer in good shape, just nice and bright, not plugged. And no sign of that brass sleeve. Amazing. Oh, there it is, way in there. Okay, so now maybe I can drive it out the other side. Got my handy dandy rebar chisel that I made. But yeah, there it goes. Let's push it out the other side. No, that's the most mysterious hidden brass sleeve I've ever seen. Where'd it go? And there I see fragments of it. I don't know if my arm's long enough. Well, interesting. What I've learned is that in 20 years, which is the anniversary of this Springbox, built it in 1993, that brass sleeve I had holding up this strainer dissolved. And it must have gone in my drinking water. There's a piece of it, paper thin, and just a fragment. So now the question is, how can I seat this in the pipe? It was seated over the pipe, over the end of the nipple. But I think what I'll do is bend this handle so that I can shove it into the nipple and have it present a concave surface instead of a convex surface. And hopefully it'll stay there But that's going to be after we clean the spring out. So the first thing is I'm going to push as much debris as I can out that clean-out pipe. Now, there isn't much to clean out because debris can't really get in here. When I first built the spring, the bottom of it was just full of black debris, organic debris, because stuff was growing in there. But this is not black. There's no organic material in the bottom of my spring, which is the way it should be. What I'm seeing is kind of rusty water and gravel. Now I want to increase this flow on this pipe, or on this channel, as much as I can, so that it drags as much stuff out as it can. And to do that, I have to unclog all the dams downstream to make it flow. So I'll just pull out. There's a lot of sand in here that's partly a result of my sandbag dam that I used to temporarily restore the flow. I dammed up this narrow spot right here in the rock and had the water pool in here so that I could get a good flow through my pipes. That was a good temporary solution. But now we're into the next phase. Now the big nervy experiment. This might be smart and this might be dumb. The theory is that if I dump bentonite in here, it'll plug up the leak that's under this cap. And then I don't think I'm going to dump all 50 pounds in. I think I'll dump some bentonite in and watch it, see what it does. This cap barely has room to turn in here. I had to chisel away rock and gravel and concrete in order to get the cap off. Mosquitoes are pretty thick down here. Now I'm just going to put this on hand tight, I think. It's hard enough to get off. So now that plugs up in the clean out, and you can see the water level is rising and it's coming out the leaks that are around, rather than rising all the way up to my takeoff pipe. So what I want to do now is dump in the bentonite. Maybe should have brought a little scooper, but I didn't. After thinking about this a little bit, I'm a little worried about dumping bentonite in there, because trying to figure out what's going on here. One thing is, I know I have a leak in my concrete seal at the bottom. That's what I'm trying to plug up. But I can't explain why I have spring water coming out from up high on the hill. That worries me. And so I'm thinking that it could be that the spring is plugged up just from sediment. The gravel that is under here used to be the base of the spring, maybe that's plugged up and the water can't get in as easily, and so it's squirting out higher up in elevation. And so if I add bentonite to plug up this leak, I might just be making that problem worse if that's the case. So what I decided to do is to dig in there and pull out whatever's in there with a post hole digger and just see if I can get down to gravel. It is boiling a little, so it is flowing into there like it's supposed to be. But I can see I'm not getting anything out with this post hole digger that makes a difference. So forget that. That water level coming out the pipe sure seems to be rising. Anyway, instead of dumping 50 pounds of bentonite in there, I think I'm going to dump a smaller amount right up against the wall of this. The whole idea is to stop that leak and to not interfere with the spring itself. Okay, I have couple cans of bentonite, and here goes the experiment. I'm going to notice the height of that water coming out the supply pipe. And then I'm going to dump this little can. So looking down in the spring box, you see that bentonite floating around. I'd like it to be over against this wall and sinking. This stuff floats. But my water level is a lot higher. I don't know about a lot higher. Maybe it just got dammed up by blobs of bentonite and it's working it off now. The water level definitely is higher. That's good news. My rigging. Where that came from? Now, I've got it all wet, I think, so it shouldn't float. That's the theory. So I'm going to dump this in, see if I can have it sink right over by where I think the leak is. Now push it down. So what did that do? Boy, it's not coming out underneath much. It's not gushing. Maybe it did work. But that was a successful enough test. I'm going to do another one. So I'm going to mix up another batch of wet bentonite and make some blobs. Pour them in. Alright, I think I'm going to dump this in there. I want to go out my well, at least floats. So we solved that problem. And I suppose I could put my plumbing together before I do anything else, but I want to wait and make sure it completely clears up before I do. Yeah, it'll take a while to clear up. I want to make sure it's clear before I put the lid back on and go. But I think I've concluded that phase 2, just plugging up the leak with bentonite, is not going to be the final solution, because I can see that it's still leaking, and the leak will only get worse with time. Just like it did, it took 20 years for it to start leaking this bad. And so I think the final solution to this problem is going to be to enlarge this spring box. I'll just leave this the way it is with its pipes inside, and I think I'll just open both ends of all those pipes. And then I will make a dam right here at this narrow point, and that's where I'll have all 3 pipes stacked vertically. And I know that this rock right here that I'm standing on is bedrock, and I know that this is bedrock out here. So, and then my concrete slab, this that I'm standing on, I poured up against that bedrock. So I don't see how it could leak under this slab. There's 2 slabs. One foot is on each one. I poured this first. At the same time I poured that. And then I poured these 2 second, trying to plug up the leak. And so I think if I seal it right down here, water can't leak out any place. It'll have to come out through my pipes, and that should last at least another 20 years, probably last another 100 years. Hard to say. The question about the water coming down the hill is still an interesting open question. We had an earthquake a couple weeks ago. Luckily, I noticed that my water level was down just a couple days before the earthquake. So in that way I know that it wasn't the earthquake that shifted things to make this change. But it could have. Well, we're starting to get pretty clear water. You can see the bottom of the pool. You can see my bentonite laying on the bottom, mostly over that way, and some in the middle. I'm going to push the stuff away from the middle, just so it doesn't plug up the spring flow. Just had a thought. I think I'll hook up my plumbing first before I put the lid back on. And that way I'll be able to see the water level. And I don't want to hook the plumbing up until that water's coming out clear. Okay, the next thing to do is to put this strainer back. It's in remarkable good condition for 20 years old. And we're not going to hold it in there with a piece of brass that's going to dissolve. So what I'm going to do is just cut a length of pipe to spread across the inside of the spring box, and just jam this handle against the wall, and that will hold the strainer over the opening of the pipe. So the question is, how long does it have to be? And if my spring box walls are parallel, bottom distance should be pretty much the same as the top distance. Oh, I can wedge it against this side. Cam it to increase the tension, the compression, and so it doesn't have to be exact. So we'll just get Gus's handy saw out here, mark it against this, do it about like this. Good job. Alright, let's just prove the concept here. A little tight. It is just right tight. Okay, let's the water's running clear. Let's see if we can't get this thing in place. Perfect. Perfect is close enough around here.